Hello adventurers. So I was supposed to be down on the Stirling Ranges camping the next couple of days, but last night there was a big lightning strike and it got burnt out, so it's all closed and the campsites are closed. So thought I would put together this video that I've been going to do for a little while. It's to do with solar. So I know a little bit about solar. I'm a mechanic by trade. Then I got into electronics later on after being a mechanic for a while, so I have a little bit of a grounding in it. But so what we're going to check is, this is a Waeco 120 watt panel. This is a one of the cost-effective, cheaper blankets, and I'm going to pit the two against each other and just let you know some gotchas and things that you should look out for, and how the two stack up. So I got this folding panel from Camping Four-Wheel Drive, Camping 4WD in Wangara in Western Australia, but these guys haven't sponsored it. They didn't give it to me. I bought it at normal pricing. It's just a very cost-effective panel. Cost me about $200 Australian for a 120 watt blanket, and also a PWM controller come with that, but we're going to use a Redarc controller and we'll try the both. So let's get these together and get some meters on, and we'll see how they perform. So first off, we'll take this out. This one comes in a nice nice bag. It's actually not too bad a quality, and it folds up pretty small compared to the other one. You can see the difference in the size, and the weight is quite a bit different as well. This weighs about 5 kilos, I think. So we'll get this unfolded, and we're just going to lay them straight back, straight flat on the ground to start with. And this one here is a standard clamshell style. It's a Waeco one. It's a reasonable quality one, and your standard aluminium type setup. So again, we'll put this one straight out and we'll put him flat on his back so it matches this one. And then we'll now go and hook up some cables to the car, and we'll see how they perform. So what I have to check them with, I've got a clamp meter. We're not going to use those. We've got some double adapters. I'll show you what we're going to do with those later. And I've got a meter here to stick into the line, and I've got a PWM controller that we'll play around with later as well. And over here in the engine bay we have a Redarc, which is hooked up over here to a second battery. And at the back I've also been running a light to pull the battery down and flatten it out a bit to make sure that we can actually pump some power back into it. So let's get on with hooking those up to the front. On the front of the car also have two Anderson plugs. This one goes directly to the battery, which you can plug a PWM controller onto, and this one here goes into the Redarc MTTP controller. So you can see I can see the difference between the two types of controllers and their efficiencies and how much current you'll get out of each. So let's start off by hooking up the solar blanket and the aluminium panels, and we'll hook it in there and we'll flick between them and see which ones give how much current each one gives. So let's get started with that. So we have a couple of power leads here, and we'll hook it up to the MTTP controller first. So let's get this hooked up to here. Make sure that's fully unfurled. So that's just your standard Anderson. And then we're going to plug this one here into here. And then you can see in there that the Redarc has detected that current. Get the clamp meter, we'll turn him on, zero him, and then we should be able to clamp it onto here, and we should be able to see how much current. So at the moment that's 6.4 amps through the MTTP controller from the solar blanket. And that's pretty well stabilised out at 6.4 amps. We're in the same sun. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Australia, as you can see by the sky. So let's get the other one hooked up and we'll see what that produces. Got another cord here, so we'll just pop up this here. and get that plugged in. I've got two things here, one for the PWM and one for the MTTP. We'll go to the MTTP, put him down flat, and then we'll plug him into here, the same place as the other one, and we'll see what current we get. And we just have to wait for the charge controller to reset. There it goes, and we're at 6.3 before, and so this will slowly climb up, so let's see what it stabilizes out at. So there you go, about 6.7, it's gone to 7, 6.97, so from 6.3 to 6.9 to 7 amps. And that's not too bad considering one is a very expensive panel for what it is, and one is a cost-effective panel. So that's pretty impressive. So about 6.9, it's popping up to 7 from time to time. So being lighter, smaller and easier to handle compared to a little bit more current, you know, which one do you want to take? Most of the time you'll use the lighter one a lot more because it is lighter and easier to handle. So that's interesting. So I've got another meter which I can clamp onto here. So let's do that and we'll see what that shows compared to the other clamp meter. So we've got one of these meters that you see quite a few places. I'll get it in the sun so you can see it. There it is. And you just put it in line. So we'll stick that in line with that plug and we'll see how it stacks up. So you just got to make sure that you put it the right direction. And it's starting up, so you can see we're getting some startup boot up information. There you go, we're at 7.3 amps and it's slowly climbing up. It'll climb up to about 11 and a bit volts. 7.3 amps, 7.2 amps. What's our clamp meter say? Our clamp meter says about 6.3, so there's a little bit of voltage drop. A little bit of drop through the controller, but that's to be expected and pretty normal. So let's see what we've got. Yep, 15 volts, 6.5, 6.6 amps, so it's come back 6.7. So it's stabilizing out to be similar. So that's pretty good performance out of that, out of those panels. So let's switch back to the blanket and we'll see what that gives. So what are we on? We're stabilized at 7 amp hours, 6.9 amps, sorry. Stabilized at 6.8 amps, 6.6, so around that 6, and we're at 6.9 here. So let's plug in the other blanket and we'll see how that goes. So it's just rebooting again because it's powered by the panel that it's plugged into. So the charge controller has kicked in and we're on the panel. What do we got here? We have 13 volts, 6.5 amps, 6.5, yeah, pretty well about 6.5. And what do we got on here? Again, about 6.1 here. And that's on the blanket. So the two are very close. Slightly less on the blanket as I would expect, probably because it's running a lot hotter than that and it's a cheaper blanket. So what I would expect, but it's performing better than I expected. So very impressed with that. So let's show you one of the downsides of a cheaper blanket. And I'll move the meter from here out to the end to show you that, and we'll show you what happens. Just one of the things you've got to be aware of when you buy these cheaper solar systems. So let me just move this, meter. So one thing to be aware of with these cheaper panels is they have to all be in sun. So all of these small sub panels need to be in full sunlight. If they're not in full full sunlight, they will stop working altogether. So as you can see here, we're at, what are we, 6.6 amps, if you can see that. What I'm going to do is take this cover and I'm going to put it over a couple of the panels like that. So there we are, we've covered a little bit of it. And as you can see, that basically killed all voltage because it killed the power to this. So let's pull that off a bit. There we go, it's rebooting, we've got enough voltage. And let's see what current we're getting out of it. You should see that in the... So we've got 12.6 volts, we're getting no current at the moment. So we'll let that sit there for a while and just see if we can get any current out of it. And all we've got is one of those panels covered, as you can see there. So I had to move the whole cover off to get it to crank up. We're at 7.27 amps there at the minute. And I'll just cover up one panel. There you go, we've gone down to 0. And I've just got the one panel. So I'll show you a comparison to that setup, what happens when you cover half of it. But as you can see with these types and the cheaper ones is you have to have full sun on all panels, otherwise the whole panel shuts down. So that's just something to be aware of if you're going to buy cheaper panels or panels that behave in this way. You need to make sure that you aren't under trees and shade. They just don't work well in shade. You have to have an even amount of light across the whole panel. So let's get onto this one and I'll show you the difference on that one. So we have it hooked up. We're getting pretty good. You're getting 6.7 amps. So let's cover over half of the panel. There you go, half the panel's covered. And we should reduce, but not totally go to 0. So we've reduced to 4.42 amps, between 3.5 and 4 amps. So that's the difference between a good panel or that style of panel and this type of panel or the cheaper panels. You can have half in shade and it'll still produce electricity. This one here has to be, the whole panel has to be covered in equal amount of sunlight, whatever that is. So something to keep in mind when you get these sorts of panels. You can't go putting it under the sort of the shade like over there behind, near that tree, half in the shade. It'll stop working. So show you another thing that you can do with these two panels, that if you needed extra boost and you've got both, you can use both of them at the same time. So let's get that set up. So what you can do if you've got one of these double adapters, which you can get from anywhere, it's just an Anderson plug double adapter, you can plug 2 solar panels in and run both the solar panels through the one charger, and you'll get effectively both the current from both of them added up going into your battery. So let's do that and we'll see how much we get in there. So at the moment I'm getting 6.8 out of that one panel, which is the aluminium panel. So if I pull that apart there, I'll put the double adapter in here. I'll put the silver panel in there and just see if the charger should kick in. And then we'll get the one from the solar blanket and also plug it in. And if you have a look on there, now we're getting 14 amps. 14 amps of power with both of them together. So let's have a look at the difference between the PWM charger that comes on both of these. It's a very similar charger, and the MTT-P controller, which is in the red arc, and see the difference between a current both of those will produce. I now have it plugged directly to the panel through the voltage meter, which is showing 6.4, 6.5 amps, and into the red arc MTT-P controller. MPPT? MPPT, I think it is. I'll have to get my acronyms right. And that's how much current we're getting, 6.5 amps. So that one there goes to the red arc, and this plug here goes direct to the battery. So we'll disconnect it and we'll switch it direct to the battery, and we'll plug in the PWM controller. So let's get that done. So we'll just get this here changed from the panel. Need to go to the correct, that's not the correct one, this is the correct one. Need to go to the correct plug. We need to plug that into there. And then we need to plug this into here, and we'll be able to read the current. So let's do that. So there you go, got about 6.3 amps, 6.2 amps, 6.1, 5.9. So a little less than the Red Arc controller. And it's not on there, so we'd have to go to this here. There we go, 5.8. So as you can see, it's about nearly an amp, I guess. So that's the difference between the PWM controller and the MTTP controller. MTTP controllers versus PWM controllers, lots of talk about that, but I'll try and explain in a nutshell. So a PWM controller, pulse width modulated controller, pretty well switches really fast, and it switches that fast to sustain a voltage at a certain level. And what it does, it pretty well cuts off anything above that voltage. An MTTP controller has the advantage of being able to use that extra voltage. So your panels run at 17 or 22 volts. It can use anything from say 13, 13.8 upwards. It can convert that into current, and that's where the little bit of extra current comes from. It's using all of the energy of the panels. It's not just getting to a point and then throwing that away. One is cheaper and easier to make and manufacture. One's a little harder, takes a little bit more science, but is more efficient, and that's why you generally find the PWM controllers on the cheap panels out of China. Sometimes they even brand the PWM controllers as MTTP or MPPT. I can't remember which way it is. So just be wary of that. If you can, the PWM controllers are okay, but they're definitely not as efficient. So if you're trying to get every last piece of juice, definitely use the MTTP controllers. So anyway, that's a bit of a roundup of the panels and just the differences between the blankets. If you want to get a cheaper panel, just be aware that of those things that I mentioned. But I'm pretty happy with this panel. It actually works better than I expected for the price. So this was about 200 Australian from the Camping four-wheel drive shop, www.camping4wd.com.au, I believe. Not affiliated with them. They've never given me anything. I don't even really know the guys. I only go in there from time to time to get some stuff, but every time I have, it's always impressed me for the price. So that's it, guys, and I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you got something out of it, and let's go out camping.